My name is Logan Hayes. I'm 35, a single dad, and for the last 14 months, I've been the guy who mops the executive floors of the Everbright Corporation Tower in downtown Denver after everyone else has gone home. Most nights, I push a cart that smells like lemon cleaner and old coffee, earbuds in, volume low enough that I can still hear the hum of the building. I like it quiet. Quiet keeps the memories from getting too loud. At 2:17 a.m., on a Tuesday, in late October, the quiet broke. I was on 38, working the marble hallway outside the boardroom when the lights flickered once. Hard, like someone had slapped the entire grid. A second later, the elevator dinged, stuck between floors, and a sharp crack echoed down from above. Not thunder, not construction. I knew that sound the way other people know their own heartbeat. Lithium-ion battery venting? Then the smell hit, acrid, chemical. Wrong. The intercom on the wall crackled to life. Hayes, this is security. We've got a technical issue on 39. Access is locked down. Do not attempt entry. Continue your route. Repeat, no one is allowed on the 39. 39 was the executive sanctuary. Keycard only, biometric locks, and a standing rule that even the night crew stayed out unless the CEO herself called us in. Sienna Ford, the woman they called the Ice Queen in the tabloids. The woman whose company had killed my wife 8 years ago with a buggy AI surgeon assistant, nobody ever held accountable. The woman I now cleaned for 5 nights a week. I should have kept walking. Instead, I dropped the mop, grabbed the red emergency axe from the wall case, and hit the stairwell door at a dead run. 23 flights. My lungs remembered the burn from desert sandstorms. My legs remembered carrying wounded men twice my size. The alarm system on 39 was supposed to scream the second the door opened. It stayed silent. Someone had disabled it. I slammed through the fire door and the world turned black. Smoke, thick and oily, rolled across the ceiling like a living thing. Emergency strobes weren't flashing. Sprinklers weren't dropping. The only light came from the orange glow of something burning behind the glass wall of the executive conference room. I ripped my shirt over my mouth and nose and moved. The heat hit first. Then the roar. A server rack in the corner had become a torch. Flames licked up fiber optic cables, spitting sparks. And there, 10 feet from the fire, collapsed on the Italian marble like a discarded doll, was Sienna Ford. She was on her side, one arm stretched toward the exit she never reached. Her blazer was half off, hair loose and dark against the floor. No movement, no rise and fall of breathing. I didn't think. I just moved. I dropped to my knees, slid an arm under her shoulders, and dragged her back toward the stairwell. The smoke was so dense, I couldn't see the door anymore. I found it by memory and the feel of cooler air. Her body was limp, dead weight, and for one terrible second I thought I was already too late. I laid her on the landing, tilted her head, sealed my mouth over hers, and gave her 2 breaths. Nothing. I started compressions, counting out loud, because that's what you do when the world narrows to one heartbeat that isn't yours. Come on, damn it! Come on! Her ribs flexed under my palms. The fire behind us roared louder. Something exploded in the server rack, and the heat rolled over us like a wave. I kept counting. 15, 16, 17. On 21, her body jerked. A cough tore out of her, harsh and wet, and her eyes snapped open, wide, terrified, blue. She stared at me like she didn't know where she was, or who I was, or why the world was on fire. I didn't have time for introductions. Can you walk? She tried to speak, coughed again, managed a nod. Good. We're leaving, now. I hauled her up. She weighed nothing in my arms, all sharp angles and trembling muscle. We stumbled down the first flight, her bare feet slipping on the concrete, my arm locked around her waist. Behind us, the fire found new oxygen and the stairwell lit up orange. By the time we hit 35, the real alarms finally woke up, shrill and useless. Fire crews were already charging upward, radios crackling. Someone shouted my name. I ignored them. I carried her the rest of the way down, past stunned security guards and blinking red lights, out the side exit into cold October air that tasted like heaven. Paramedics swarmed. They took her from me, laid her on a stretcher, slipped an oxygen mask over her face. Her eyes found mine through the plastic. For a second, the Ice Queen was gone. There was just a woman who'd almost died, staring at the janitor who'd decided rules didn't matter more than her life. I stepped back, hands shaking, lungs raw, and let the medics do their job. Security grabbed me 10 minutes later, 2 suits and cheap ties, faces red. "What the hell were you thinking, Hayes? You were explicitly ordered." "I was thinking she was dying," I said. My voice sounded like gravel. "You're welcome." They wanted statements. They wanted footage reviewed. They wanted me suspended pending investigation. I clocked out, walked to the parking garage, and sat in my 10-year-old Tacoma until the sun came up. My phone buzzed with messages from Maddie's babysitter. I didn't answer yet. I just sat there smelling smoke in my clothes and wondering how many rules I'd just broken and how many more I was willing to break if it ever came down to it again. Because somewhere above me, on a gurney rolling toward an ambulance, was the woman whose company had taken everything from me 8 years ago, and tonight I'd carried her out of fire with my own hands. I didn't know what that meant yet. But I knew one thing for sure: nothing in that building would ever feel the same again. I wasn't always the guy pushing a mop bucket through a glass tower that carries my nightmares in its wiring. 12 years ago, I was Sergeant Logan Hayes, combat medic, 75th Ranger Regiment, Syria, 2017. An IED turned our striker into a torch, 9 men inside, burning alive. I dragged every single one of them out through a hole the size of a dinner plate. Some lived, some didn't. The ones who lived still send me Christmas cards with shaky handwriting and kids I've never met. The ones who didn't still visit me when I close my eyes. I came home with a chest full of medals and a wife who kissed the scars like they were proof I'd made it back to her. Emma. She was 6 months pregnant with Maddie when the pain started in her abdomen. They said it was routine. Laparoscopic surgery, robotic arms guided by Everbright's brand new AI assistant. The future of medicine, the brochure promised. The future killed her in 43 minutes. A software glitch told the scalpel to cut where it shouldn't. By the time the human surgeon noticed Emma had bled out on the table, Maddie was delivered by emergency C-section 8 weeks early, while I stood in a hallway that smelled like antiseptic and grief. Everbright paid a settlement. They buried the report. I buried my wife. The Army gave me an honorable discharge and a flag. I took the flag, left the medals in a drawer, and disappeared. I changed our last name legally, just enough to keep the reporters away, moved to Denver, and got a night job cleaning the same building that built the machine that stole her. I told myself it was penance. I told myself it was camouflage. Mostly, I told myself it kept me close enough to Maddie that she never had to wake up wondering where her dad went. Sienna Ford was 21 when Emma died. I didn't know her name then. I only knew the company. By the time I started wiping fingerprints off Everbright's marble, Sienna had climbed from junior developer to CEO, 33 years old, youngest in the company's history and the coldest. People said she didn't have friends, only assets. She lived on the top floor of the tower in a penthouse no one was invited to. She ate alone, worked alone, and when she walked through the lobby, everyone found something suddenly fascinating on their phones. I'd seen her maybe a dozen times, always in tailored suits the color of winter skies, hair pulled back so tight it looked painful, eyes that looked straight through you. She never acknowledged the night crew. We were furniture. That was fine by me, until the night the 39th floor caught fire and I carried her out. In the hospital the next day, while she was still sedated, someone pulled her chart. Curiosity, I told myself. The nurse left the tablet open. I saw the name on the wristband and felt the floor tilt. Sienna Ford. The signature on the settlement papers that bought my silence 8 years ago was signed by a junior VP. The company was hers now. She woke up 48 hours later. I know because security told me to stay away from her room. I know because the news ran the story of the heroic janitor for exactly 1 cycle before Everbright's PR machine buried it. I know because I went home, showered off the smoke, and told Maddie her dad was just tired, nothing more. But Sienna didn't let it die. She requested the security footage. She pulled my personnel file. She learned my real name, my service record, the article from the inquest that never made the papers. She learned that the man who dragged her out of the fire was the same husband whose wife her company had killed. And for the first time in her life, the Ice Queen discovered what guilt felt like when it had a face. She didn't call me. She didn't send flowers. She started riding the service elevator at 3 a.m. just to watch me work. She stood in the shadows of the parking garage and waited until I walked to my truck. She learned what shift I took my break, what brand of coffee I drank, that I kept a small photo of Emma and Maddie taped inside my locker. I pretended I didn't notice. But every night I felt her eyes on me like frost on glass, and every night I remembered the weight of her body in my arms when I thought she was already gone. 2 weeks after the fire, I found an envelope slid under my apartment door. Inside was a single photograph, Emma on the operating table, time-stamped the moment the AI took over, and a post-it in handwriting I didn't yet recognize. "I'm sorry, I don't know how to fix this, but I owe you the truth. No signature. I burned the photo in the sink and didn't sleep for 2 days. Some wounds never close, some debts never get paid. And some nights, when the building is empty and the only sound is the hum of machines that once stole everything from me, I still taste smoke on my tongue and feel the weight of a woman who wasn't supposed to matter. I just didn't know yet that she was about to matter more than anything else in the world." I kept my head down after the fire. Same routine, same floors, same silence. Security stopped glaring at me after the first week. The company decided the story was safer dead than alive. Sienna Ford never appeared on the night shift again. I told myself that was mercy. Then came the morning I almost broke my own rule about staying invisible. Maddie's school was closed for teacher conferences and the sitter called in sick. I couldn't leave her home alone, so I did the only thing I could think of. I brought her with me to the tower on a Saturday when the building was supposed to be empty. I parked her in the cafeteria with a sketch pad, a pack of colored pencils, and strict instructions to stay put while Daddy finished the executive lounge on 37. She promised. 7-year-olds and promises are temporary things, but I trusted her more than most adults. I was wrong. I came back down 40 minutes later to find her table empty. The pencils were scattered like someone had left in a hurry. My heart dropped straight through the floor. I tore through the cafeteria, the lobby, the parking garage. No Maddie. I was 2 seconds from calling 911 when the elevator dinged and she stepped out, holding a half-eaten chocolate croissant in one hand and a woman's manicured fingers in the other. Sienna Ford. She was dressed down for her, dark jeans, white sneakers, hair in a loose knot instead of the usual armor. Maddie was talking a mile a minute, swinging their joined hands like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Daddy!" Maddie spotted me and ran over, crashing into my legs. "This is Miss Sienna. She found me by the big fish tank on 39 and said I shouldn't be alone. She bought me a croissant and said, 'You're a real-life hero.'" I couldn't breathe. Sienna met my eyes over Maddie's head. No ice this time, just caution and something softer I couldn't name. "I was coming in for files," she said quietly. The elevator opened and there she was. I recognized her from the photo in your locker. I'd forgotten that photo was there. Maddie tugged my sleeve. "She said you carried her out of fire like Captain America. Is that true, Daddy?" I crouched so we were eye level. "It's true, kiddo. But you know the rule about staying where I can see you." "I'm sorry," she whispered, then looked back at Sienna. "Miss Sienna said rules are important, but sometimes grown-ups break them to keep people safe. Like you did." I stood slowly. Sienna hadn't moved. The space between us felt charged, like the air before lightning. "Thank you for looking after her," I managed. "She shouldn't be here alone, Mr. Hayes." Her voice was low enough that only I could hear the rest. "And neither should you." Maddie, oblivious, held up her sketch pad. "Look what I drew for Miss Sienna." It was me in my janitor uniform wearing a red cape made of a mop, carrying a stick figure woman with long dark hair out of orange crayon flames. Underneath, in purple block letters, "My daddy saves people." Sienna took the drawing with careful fingers like it might break. "It's beautiful, Maddie. May I keep it?" Maddie beamed. "You can hang it in your big office. Daddy says you're the boss of the whole building." Sienna's smile faltered for half a second. "I am, and I think your daddy might be the bravest person in it." I wanted to disappear into the marble floor. Instead, I took Maddie's hand. "We've got to go. Thanks again, Ms. Ford." She didn't stop me, but as the elevator doors closed, I caught her reflection in the polished metal, standing alone in the empty lobby, holding a child's drawing like it was the most fragile thing she'd ever been handed. That night, Maddie asked if Miss Sienna could come over for macaroni and cheese sometime. I told her probably not. She accepted it the way only kids can and fell asleep clutching the stuffed bear Emma had given her the week before she died. 3 days later, I found a plain white envelope in my work mailbox. Inside was Maddie's drawing, now professionally framed, and a single note in neat, slanted handwriting. She told me her daddy used to save soldiers. Then he stopped. I think he just started again. I hung the picture above Maddie's bed without telling her where it came from, and for the first time in 8 years, I didn't dream of fire. I dreamed of a little girl with purple crayons and a woman who looked at me like I wasn't invisible anymore. They moved faster than I expected. 10 days after the fire, I was called to HR on the 42nd floor, a place I'd never been invited in 14 months of mopping their halls. 2 men in $5,000 suits waited behind a table that probably cost more than my truck. One was Everett Lang, vice chairman. The other was legal. Neither stood when I walked in. Mr. Hayes, Lang began, sliding a thick folder across the table. Your actions on the night of October 23rd violated 17 separate security protocols. You endangered proprietary equipment, ignored direct orders, and entered a restricted area without authorization. I stayed standing. She was dying. We're aware of the outcome, Legal said, not looking up from his tablet. We're here to discuss the terms of your continued employment and the compensation package for your initiative. He pushed a second folder toward me. Inside was an offer letter, Director of Building Safety, low 7 figures, full benefits, a signing bonus that could pay off my house twice over, and a non-disclosure agreement longer than my service record. I didn't touch it. Lang leaned forward. You'll also receive a promotion from Ms. Ford's personal staff. She won't be on the executive floor much longer. The board feels the incident has compromised her authority. A leader shouldn't need rescuing by custodial staff. It sends the wrong message. The words landed like punches I didn't bother blocking. She stays, I said. Lang smiled the way a shark smiles. That's no longer your concern. I left the folders where they were and walked out. That same afternoon, Sienna summoned me to the 39th floor. The scorch marks were already gone. The air smelled like new paint and money. She stood at the window, Denver spread beneath her like a circuit board. She didn't turn when the door closed behind me. They want my resignation by Monday, she said to the glass. They say I've become a liability, the ice queen who needed a janitor to carry her out of her own building. She finally faced me. No makeup, eyes red-rimmed, but the spine was steel. I'm not going, she said. Not quietly. She crossed the room and placed a slim drive on the table between us. Everything, she said. Every suppressed report, every internal email, every line of code that failed 8 years ago, including Emma's surgery logs. I pulled them myself. They'll crucify me for this, but I'm releasing it all tomorrow morning. I stared at the drive like it was a live grenade. You'll lose everything, I said. I already did, she answered. The night you carried me out, I realized the empire I built was rotten at the foundation. I just didn't know how deep until I saw your name on the old files. She reached into her pocket and took out a single sheet of heavy cream paper, folded once. Her resignation letter, except the date, was blank and the signature line was empty. I want you to have the job they offered, she said, Director of Safety, not as a payoff, as someone who actually knows what safety means, someone I trust. I took the letter, turned it over, and wrote across the bottom in black ink, I don't forgive Everbright. I don't work for people who buy silence, but I respect a person who chooses to stand in the fire instead of walking away from it. Take the chair, fix what's broken, I'll help. No title needed. I slid it back to her. She read it once, twice, then folded it carefully and put it in her jacket pocket like it was the most valuable thing she owned. Tomorrow, she said. The board meets at 9. I'm walking in with the drive. Whatever happens after that happens. I nodded. You won't be alone. For the first time since I'd met her, Sienna Ford looked like she might cry. She didn't. She just reached out and touched the place on my forearm where the smoke had burned me the night I carried her out. Thank you, Logan, she whispered, for breaking the rules when they mattered. I left before either of us could say anything else we weren't ready for. The next morning, the headlines exploded across every screen in the country. Everbright Corporation's CEO released 8 years of hidden failures. Stock dropped 29% in the first hour. The board called for her head. She refused to give it. By noon, the old guard was gone, escorted out by security they'd once commanded. By nightfall, Sienna Ford was still in the corner office, sleeves rolled up, fighting for the company she was trying to save from itself. And somewhere, on the 38th floor, the janitor kept mopping. Only now, he wasn't invisible anymore. He was the man who'd refused a fortune to keep a promise he never made out loud. If the building burns again, he'll break every rule they write to make sure no one dies alone in the dark. Not on his watch, not ever again. A year later, the Everbright Tower looked the same from the outside, 40 stories of glass and steel catching the Colorado sun. But inside, everything had changed. The 39th floor no longer had biometric locks that only answered to one woman. The server racks were gone, replaced by an open crisis room with whiteboards full of failure reports no one was allowed to hide anymore. The company still made money. More than ever, actually. But now every quarterly report carried a page titled Lives Impacted instead of just revenue growth. Investors hated it, patients loved it. The stock recovered anyway. Sienna Ford was still CEO. Her office door stayed open most days. I never took the director title. I took a smaller one, senior safety advisor. No corner office, no parking spot with my name. My badge still said facilities. And that was fine. I wore a uniform half the week so nobody forgot where I came from. The other half I spent in meetings teaching engineers what it feels like to carry someone out of smoke, showing board members photos of the 9 men I pulled from a burning striker and the 1 woman I couldn't save on an operating table. Maddie became the unofficial mascot. She had her own hard hat, bright purple, and a desk in the lobby where kids visiting on school tours could draw pictures of real heroes. Most of them drew me with a mop cape. Some drew Sienna with fire coming out of her hands like a superhero. She kept every single one taped inside her office door. On the first anniversary of the fire, the company held a remembrance ceremony in the plaza. They unveiled a simple bronze plaque. For those we failed, and for those who refused to let us fail again. Emma's name was first. Maddie tugged my sleeve when it was over. "Come on, Daddy. We have to go get her." She marched straight to Sienna, who was shaking hands with reporters, and took her hand without asking. Sienna looked down, startled, then let the 7-year-old lead her away from the cameras like it was the most natural thing in the world. We drove to the cemetery in my beat-up Tacoma. Maddie carried the flowers, sunflowers, because Emma always said they looked like happiness you could hold. Sienna walked a step behind us, hands clasped, sunglasses hiding whatever was in her eyes. At the grave, Maddie laid the flowers and spoke to the headstone the way only kids can. "Mommy, this is Miss Sienna. Daddy carried her out of fire like he tried to carry you out of the bad hospital. She's helping him fix the bad machines now, so nobody else has to go away early. I think you'd like her. She's really tall, and she lets me eat cookies in her big office." She stepped back and pushed Sienna forward. "Your turn," she whispered. Sienna knelt, the knees of her charcoal suit in the grass, and spoke so quietly I barely heard. "I never got to meet you, Emma. But your husband saved my life, and your daughter taught me what family actually means. I'm sorry for what my company took from you. I can't give it back, but I can make sure it never happens again. I promise." She stayed there a long time. When she stood, Maddie slipped one hand into hers and one into mine. We stood in a row, 3 people who had no blood in common, and watched the wind move through the sunflowers. Later that autumn, on a Saturday when the aspens were pure gold, we ended up at Washington Park. Maddie ran ahead with a kite shaped like a dragon. Sienna and I walked slower, side by side, close enough that our shadows overlapped. She broke the silence first. "I used to think family was something you were born into or married into," she said. "Turns out it's something you choose when you decide another person's heartbeat matters more than your own comfort." I looked at her. The wind had pulled a strand of hair loose. She didn't fix it. "I choose you," I said. Simple. No speech, no kneeling. Just the truth. She smiled, not the polished CEO smile, the real one Maddie had unlocked months ago. "I chose you the night you broke every rule to carry me out of that fire," she answered. "I just needed time to catch up." Maddie screamed for us to watch her dragon soar. We ran to her, 3 sets of footprints in the grass that didn't match but fit perfectly together. No wedding, no paperwork, no need. Some nights Sienna works late and comes to our little house with takeout and tired eyes. Some mornings I wake up in her penthouse with Maddie sprawled across both of us watching cartoons. We take turns reading bedtime stories and signing school permission slips. We became the family we needed, not the one the world expected. And on quiet evenings, when the Denver sky turns the exact shade of Emma's favorite sunset, I look at the two of them, one small hand drawing superheroes, one strong hand holding mine. And I know the fire took everything it could from me. But it also left the door open for something new to walk in. Sometimes saving someone isn't about the moment you pull them from the flames. Sometimes it's about the years you spend afterward making sure they never have to be afraid of burning again. And sometimes, if you're lucky, they save you right back.